On April 14, 1912, at 11:40 p.m., the RMS Titanic struck an iceberg. The supposedly unsinkable ship soon took on water on the lower decks and, inside of 3 hours, sank beneath the North Atlantic. Unfortunately, there were not enough lifeboats aboard, and over 1,500 lives were lost and 705 saved. They say there was much bravery during those few hours, much more than we will ever know.
New luxury liner set sail, blazing a live sea-going vessel from the White Star Line. Titanic sets new standards for the 20th century. Largest ship to ever set sail. Large liner the length of 14 blocks. Titanic, unsinkable.
I cannot imagine any condition that would cause a ship to founder. Modern shipbuilding has gone beyond that. Edward Smith, senior officer of the White Star Line and captain of the Titanic. Thousands on board, each in his class. You are the master of all that must pass. Yours to set course, yours to command. You hold their souls in the palm of your hand. You hold their souls in the palm of your
Will you come along, dear? Oh, Mother, listen to this. The ship measures 882 feet in length and can carry a total of 3,500 passengers.
There must be someone who can help us.
There are 9 decks and several facilities, including 2 barber shops, several cafes, a Turkish bath, and a gymnasium. How did they build the Titanic? Near 1,000 feet in length, huge beyond past endeavor, strong beyond mortal strength. 46,000 tons of steel, 11 stories high. She's a great palace floating, white as a lullaby.
Our cabin must be one on the upper decks.
The chain used to hold the anchor is so large that one link, listen, one link is 175 pounds.
May I be of some assistance?
Will you help me find my cabin?
Of course. I was just about to do my rounds.
Your rounds, that must take some time. How far do you have to walk?
Only about a mile. This way.
A masterpiece, gentlemen. A floating palace. Much nicer than the Lusitania. And unsinkable.
I never said it was unsinkable. I said it was practically unsinkable. Thomas Andrews, builder of the Titanic.
We had to compete with the Cunard line, especially after they launched the Lusitania. Bruce Ismay, managing director of the White Star Line.
And old J.P. Morgan himself as part owner. I heard he was supposed to make the maiden voyage with us, but canceled that last minute.
Yes, he had a business deal.
Health reasons.
Oh well, his loss.
We'll never get through all these messages in one day. If only the blasted wireless hadn't been broken until today.
Just give me the messages.
What about the other incoming messages from those other ships?
We're here to serve the businessmen. First-class passengers first, then ship's business. 1st time.
Oh, here's a new... 1st class. 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 1st This dress code, the SOS, whatever that means.
Engines at quarter speed.
Well, it is elegant, but so dashed big.
I think that's what helps make it elegant.
And a bit new for me. My word, you can still smell the paint.
It makes me a bit nauseous. After all, I am, well.
We know you and Mr. Asher are about to be blessed with a new arrival.
Dear me, Madeline. You mean you're, but you're only
19 and expecting. She is a grand ship, isn't she?
Well, it's still too big for me. Did you know that the fourth funnel is only for show?
The fourth what? Oh, you mean smokestack.
Yes, smokestacks. Isn't really needed, just for show. Well, things change too fast for me. My world is a world of old money and old traditions.
My husband is of old money, but I'm a new bride. Mrs. John Jacob Astor.
Well, my husband, Mr. Brown, made his bundle digging for it. New money, old silver. Maggie Brown. But you can call me Molly.
It's also very nice in third class.
I've heard third class here is better than first on others.
It's also new.
You can still smell the paint.
It's like a floating city, just like a small town, and everything is so nice.
It's called third class.
We have running water in our rooms.
I've heard that because of the coal strike, they had to have their coal taken and put on Titanic for this trip we're on now.
So, you are going to Philadelphia?
Yes, to visit my husband. Me, Paul, Tolbert, Stina, and Gosta, we all go. We have great hopes for life in the United States of America.
4 children. I have 5. Ernesti and Jacob, the oldest ones. They're in the front rooms, and the other 3 are with me.
White Star Line, they don't take chances, huh? All the single men in the front of the boat, and the single women all the way in the rear. And us married ones in the middle.
Smarty people, huh? Such a treat when an 18-year-old girl from Finland, Anna Truja.
My husband Niels immigrated to the United States of America over a year ago from Sweden. Mrs. Alma Paulson.
Me, we also come from Finland and are going to Pittsburgh to be with husband, Maria Penula.
Come about, gentle now.
Yes, Mr. Myrtle. It is cold. You look freezing. We should be up around the ice floes around 11 o'clock.
Anything from the wireless?
Still trying to catch him up. We gave the captain a note earlier.
From the White Star Baltic to Captain Smith Titanic, have had moderate variable winds and clear fine weather since leaving. Greek steamer Athena reports passing icebergs and large ice fields since leaving. Wish you and Titanic all the success. Not much wind.
No, sir. It is a flat calm, as a matter of fact.
Good evening.
Good evening, Captain.
On the evening of April 14th, we watched the sunset. It was so lovely, wasn't it? So calm like the top of a mill pond. Yes, it will be beautiful in the morning.
And she will later be known as Miss Jessie Leach, the daughter, Reverend Harper's daughter nursemaid.
Chief Officer Wild,
Vauxhall.
just trying the course of on steamy grounds.
Always worry not doing enough for the pattern. Hey, Vauxhall?
Part of my current post, sir. Making a report.
Letter.
Personal then.
Yes. Was there a fire on one of the boiler room?
All taken care of, sir.
Fire on one of the boiler room. Don't think we got a winner. Continue what you got.
Yes, sir.
Just a letter to my sister. This may be just a feeling. I don't like this shit. There's a queer feeling about it. Chief Officer Henry Robb.
Who's on what, sir?
Frederick Fleet and Benjamin Lee, I believe. Something you're concerned about, Vauxhall?
No, sir. No more than you are, sir.
So called on the watch, Evie. Just keep your eyes low, I think we'll be alright. Just wish we had the binoculars.
Well, the officers knew where they live.
Where's he?
They tried to know.
That's officers thinking at work, mind you.
Anyways, why Why would you need binoculars on a ship that's unsinkable?
Flying in the face of Providence.
What was that?
Something I keep hearing people say. We are flying in the face of Providence.
Well, let's keep the face smiling on us.
I think you missed the point.
Grand. That's just grand. I've enjoyed myself as if I were in a summer palace by the seashore. And Isidore and I spent a lot of time discussing the Civil War. Quite a few tales to tell you. Let me tell you. Oh, nevertheless, I must get back to my exercise regimen. I've gone too long lounging around Colonel Archibald Gracie.
Good evening, Mrs. Strauss. Good evening, Ellen.
Mrs. Strauss. Ma'am, we're just going for a walk on deck.
You'll be careful, young lady. There's a chill in the air.
Yes, ma'am.
How is Mrs. Ida Strauss? Probably owner of Mrs. Department Store?
Yes, he owns it with his brother Nathan. You've been there?
Many times. Such a grand establishment. It is all the talk of New York.
He'll be glad to hear you like it.
The Strausses on board, John Jacob Astor, owner of the Halls of Astoria, Benjamin Guggenheim. I don't know why the ship is going to New York when so much of New York is already on the ship.
I'm Mr. and Mrs. Stratus's maid, and having the time of my life. Ellen Bird.
Mr. Andrews, still up there?
Just tidying up the books a bit.
We are really moving through the Atlantic at quite a clip.
At about 22 knots. We'll be in New York before you know it. And I'm sure you ladies have some fine gentlemen waiting for you, eh?
Oh, no, sir, not us.
Speak for yourself. We'll make a grand entrance, won't we, sir?
I'll just make a note of that.
Good evening, sir.
Long day, eh, Phillips?
Might say that, sir. Ryan will be relieving me soon. About to catch up, I believe.
Very good. I'll be in my stateroom going over the blueprints, still ironing out the fiddling problem with the thing.
I've been out of break for lunch or tea, and they still keep coming in. Here's another one. From the Masaba. We are stopped and surrounded by ice. You'd think I've never seen ice before. I'm sure Captain Smith has everything well in hand. Jack Phillips, telegrapher.
I, Miss Paula D. Douglas. On Sunday we had a delightful day, everyone in the best of spirits. The time the bell was making was considered very good, and all were interested into getting to New York early. All stories of excessive gaiety are, to my mind, absolutely unfounded. We dined in the restaurant going in about 8 o'clock. We heard many stories from many sources. These I try to keep in mind clearly as they seem important. We were not aware of the proximity of icebergs on Sunday. I will quote Mrs. Ryerson. She said, "On Sunday, Mr. Ismay, whom I know very slightly, passed me on the deck. He said in his brusque manner that a Marconiogram had been sent, saying that we had just had news that we were in the ice. But later, Mr. Ismay said that he didn't know anything about a message saying that we had encountered ice." Mrs. Ryerson asked me if they would slow down. "Oh no," he replied. "We'll put on more boils and get on with it." We did not see any icebergs, not until after the accident.
Nothing's fine,
Can't see your face as I
sea. Iceberg right ahead. Full speed astern, and close the watertight doors.
Come on. Turn. There, she's turning.
Hang on now.
Look out.
Hang on now.
Look out.
Yes, it was something like a grinding noise.
No, it was more like a skate on ice. You thought so?
Yes, that's why we came up.
I thought it sounded like basket clover was dropped in an iron plate.
On the bump, like we talked earlier.
What have we hit?
We hit an iceberg, sir.
Are we badly hurt?
I had no idea.
There, is everything all right?
You thought that, Joe?
Nothing to be alarmed about. I heard the third bell's ring indicating an iceberg had been seen.
There's ice all over the deck.
Oh, wait, you really shouldn't.
Really? It's over on the far side. Be great for souvenirs of a trip.
Let's get some and a few small pieces for my drink.
Oh, I had heard First Officer Murdoch order the closing of the watertight doors. Excuse me, I'd better...
Boxer!
Yes, sir.
Inspector Bow, Russell, all the officers not on duty.
Yes, sir. Close the watertight doors.
Yes, sir. I intended to report around the bird, but she was too close, sir. There's nothing more that I can do.
All engines stop. Stop all engines. Get the ship's carpenter and Andrews.
Yes, sir.
What is it?
Mr. Ismay.
What's happened? Did we drop a propeller plane? We've hit an iceberg. Is it serious? This was to be my last voyage. My last voyage.
Did you feel that, Mr. Pittman?
No need for concern, Colonel Gracie.
Concern enough. Below, I heard the mail room was flooded, and the clerks are moving the sacks higher up.
Thank you, Colonel.
The engines have stopped.
Colonel Gracie?
This is Collier, of course.
Andrews! Andrews, have you heard? We've already been around the ship. Reports coming in.
I heard footsteps on the deck above my head. Noises the ship's tackle was being pulled about. My husband hired me to come up to investigate.
Oh, Mr. Lightoller!
Yes.
The engines have stopped. What was that, Joel?
Oh, I believe we're just looking into it.
Well,
The entire bow of the ship is flooding. The first 5 bulkheads have been breached. Maybe even 6 by now.
But the watertight doors have been closed.
I had an officer call out. They don't have any searchlights. What does that...
Now. I talked to my old friend, Third Officer Herbert Pittman, and he said there is no danger. Why won't you go back to our cabin, shall we?
No.
what are you saying, Andrews? We have an hour. 2 at the most.
That's impossible. The ship can survive if any compartment is flooded. Even 3 or 4 compartments. But not 5, sir. Not 5. We are sinking, sir.
No need for concern. After all, the ship is unsinkable, remember?
I was just writing a postcard when I heard Mr. Hartley speak to Mr. Lightoller. He said, yes, by all means, keep playing music, but move your men on deck and play something lively. And Mr. Hartley said, yes, sir, we'll do our best. Nothing like a few numbers to calm the passengers. And then I heard the most beautiful song. Autumn, shall we all meet in the autumn? Burning and glowing by autumn. Shall we still be best of friends, best of friends? All through each lingering season we have and love. Romance defying all reason will come and go. Let breezes blow and turn cold as we continue growing old. This autumn, love newly found may yet last.
There's a good lad.
In all my 40 years at sea, I have seen but one vessel in distress. I have never seen a wreck, nor ever been in one.
Let's go look for Harvey, shall we?
Yes, suppose you know best.
Lightoller comes out, and he asks the captain, "Captain, sir, what are your orders?"
Sir, should we begin the loading of the lifeboats?
No! You shut up already!
Sir, the lifeboats.
Yes. Take charge of the boats on the port side. Have Murdoch take the starboard side. And hurry!
Yes, sir.
Sir, take some water. The engineers are working to keep the lights and electrical going.
Fire off the distress rockets.
Yes, sir.
And keep sending the distress signal over the wireless.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Yo, wait. I was trying to find out.
Excuse me, Mr. Beasley.
I'm sure we can power something here.
Excuse me, I've just had an odd sensation.
Close the dampers, fan the fires, and be quick!
Where are the officers? Maria and I come here to see for ourselves. Did you hear a stutter?
No, not this boat. Not possible.
It will be all right, Maria.
I was walking down from one deck to another, and well, you may think this is strange, but I was slipped my foot would just miss a stair step.
Do we all have to die by water?
She thinks we are sinking.
And I already lost one son, back in Finland.
How?
He drowned.
You barely squeezed under there before the door clamped shut. There's still in there. For God's sake, they're still in there?
This is preposterous. Rousing us up for no reason. Being out here cold. This was some sort of joke. Listen, the ship's orchestra is playing here out there. Between us out here in this weather, so right letter to the right star and about it.
Please. Go put on your life jackets.
No. What? No.
As a precaution.
This is outrageous, Officer Boxhall.
Miss Carter, please, go put on your life jackets.
It must be a drill we cannot sink.
See? It's only a drill.
Yes, a drill.
I cannot say.
Look, there, a rocket.
But it's a white rocket. They're just greening another ship.
Please, hurry.
A red rocket is set up in case of emergency.
Hurry.
I shall write a letter. Mark my words.
Is it serious, Officer Boxhall?
I cannot say.
He asks the woman to get on their life jackets and move to the lifeboats, just as a precaution.
Let's go, Maria. Let's get my injector children up to boat deck.
There! Look! A lifeboat is already in the water!
Carter later tells him, "Well, we'll do as you asked, sir."
Third Officer Herbert Pittman. I came up from my quarters to have a look around. On the well deck, I saw a little ice there. I went up further, to the forecastle head, to see if there was any damage there. I could not see any at all. I looked down number 1 hatch and saw that water was flowing over the hatch. I immediately went to the boat deck and assisted in getting the boats ready for swinging out. I stood by number 5 boat. They would not allow the sailors to get anything, as they thought that we should get our things in the morning. I heard a man point and say, "There's no time to waste." It was Mr. Ismay. I had never seen a man in my life before. This way. Hurry. Into the lifeboat. Women and children first.
But my husband!
Don't worry. Into the lifeboat. There. Hurry. This way.
Mr. Ismay catches Jessie Leach as she was trying to run away.
Go on, get in.
But I am only a nursemaid.
Never mind, you are a woman. Take your place. Can't you move any faster?
Women and children first.
Fine, I'll be in the bar.
I'm doing as ordered. Now, if you don't get out of my way.
Fancy that, a junior officer yelling at the chief of the White Star Line.
All the port compartments are flooded.
We are listing at 5 degrees, sir.
Water's rushing up the stairwell.
The lifts are shut down.
Sir, order to stop around the Frankfurt, told the captain.
Yes, they'll be here in no time.
Yes, sir. The lift has responded, and the covered deer says she is coming hard.
Good, yes.
We have to get up to the promenade deck. Maybe somebody will know something up there.
We're not sinking. We can't sink, I tell you.
never said it was unsinkable. I said it was practically unsinkable.
Sir, the life jacket. You must put it on.
Miss Sloan, you must get to a lifeboat, and hurry!
But sir, you must.
Now, go, please!
There are no more lifeboats.
Get the boat. Be quick about it.
This way. Take it easy now. We need more seamen. Mr. Watson, 364.
Let's go, Ida. Get in the boat.
My husband and I decided if we were going to die, we would die together. They tried to make an exception of Mr. Isidore just because he was an elderly man. But he said no. Then they tried to persuade me to go into a lifeboat, and I said no. Me and my husband have been together for so many years. Wherever he goes, I go.
Please, Mrs. Fox, get into the boat.
Boxall then replies to Wilde, "I'll take care of them, Mr. Wilde."
We must get in that boat.
They're all gone. The water is over the bow. Hurry!
I am Miss Lucien Smith. I was asleep when the crash came, but then I awakened because it seemed that the boat had stopped. Around that time, my husband came into the room. We then went up on the deck. He said to me, "We have struck an iceberg, but it does not amount to anything. However, as a matter of form, the captain has ordered all the ladies to go in a lifeboat." I told him, "I'm not getting in the boat without you." And he said to me, "I never expected to ask you to the bay, but this one time you must." He told me, "Keep your hands in your pockets. It's very cold weather." And that was the last time I saw of him.
Helen W. Bishop from Michigan. My husband and I both dressed and went up to A deck. There was very little confusion, only the older women were quite nervous. Then, about 5 minutes later, the bolts were lowered and we were pushed in. I think it was lifeboat number 7.
Daisy Minahan from Wisconsin. An officer led us to the boat deck on the starboard side. He told us that there was no danger, but to get in as a precaution only. We succeeded in getting into lifeboat number 14.
Mrs. Stewart J. White from New York. It did not seem to me that there was any great impact at all. We heard no alarm whatsoever, yet we went immediately on to the upper deck. There was no talk of lifeboats in any way, when suddenly Captain Smith came down the stairwell and told us to put on our life preservers, which we did. I succeeded into getting into lifeboat number 8, the second lifeboat off from the top deck. None of the men thought that she was going down.
We were lowered away with 28 people on our boat. 3 of them are crew, and the rest of them are passengers.
When the lifeboat was filled, there was no seamen on it. The officer called for volunteers, and 6 men offered to go. As we landed in the sea, we rode a safe distance from the sinking ship. The officer counted our number and found us to be 48.
Before we cut loose from the ship, 2 of the seamen with us, or men, I guess I should say. I think they were dining room stewards. Just think, all the men who escaped under the pretense of being oarsmen. Anyway, the man who rowed near me rowed in every direction. With all those magnificent fellows on board, these were the 22 women and the 4 men in my lifeboat.
There were but 24 people in my lifeboat. After being in the water for 15 minutes, my Titanic had not yet sunk. We had been rowing for some time when 4 boats were gathered together, and 4 people were added to our boat, making it 33 in our boat.
As we were being lowered, we were in an angle of 45 degrees and expected to be thrown into the sea. As we went to the level of each deck, men jumped into our boat until the officer threatened to shoot the next man who tried to jump. The Titanic was fast sinking.
There was supposed to be one man up at the end of the boat who gave the orders. We simply rowed away. We had orders to do that upon leaving the ship, to make for the light and to land the passengers as soon as possible. And then everyone saw it, the light.
Many people in our boat said they saw 2 lights, but I think it was the way our eyes focused and maybe the hope for another boat. We rowed farther away as the women were nervous about the suction.
It was 10 miles away. We rowed and we rowed and we rowed, but it was impossible for us to get to it.
During the night, they looked for crackers, water, and a compass, but they found none. We were some distance away when we waited in the water, perhaps 3/4 of an hour, when we saw the Titanic sink. When the Titanic went down, we watched with sorrow and heard many cries, and pitied the captain because we knew he would have to stay with the boat, it not occurring to me for a moment that my husband and my friends were not saved.
It was something dreadful. No one ever thought that that ship was going to go down. I do not believe that there was a person on board of the Titanic who thought it was going to go down. Titanic sinks 4 hours after hitting an iceberg. 866 rescued by the Carpathia, and probably 1,250 perish. It is made safe. Mrs. Astor Mibby, noted names missing.
On April 14, 1912, the supposedly unsinkable ship soon took on water on the lower decks. John Bauman, Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Arnold, Carl Backstorm died that night. And inside of 3 hours, Thomas Davidson, Hannah Notting, Delia Henry died that night, sank beneath the North Atlantic. Unfortunately,
James Drew, Mr. and Mrs. William Turpin, and my husband and I, Mrs. John Chapman, died that night.
there were not enough lifeboats aboard.
John Thayer, Richard Dahlberg, my husband, Eugene and I, Rossmore Abbott, died that night.
And over 1,500 lives were lost. William Allen, James Flynn, Sidrak Gale died that night.
As far as I've been able to learn, all those who served in the dining room, from the head steward down, the musicians who played in the court outside, were lost.
Benjamin Guggenheim, I, Alicia Hawes, died that night.
Alma Paulson, coming from Sweden to visit her husband, died that night.
Maria Pinola, along with her 5 children, died that night.
1,500 lives
Reverend John Harper, who enjoyed the sunset, died that night.
were lost.
The Reverend Ernest Carter and his wife Lillian, still providing comfort to the last minute, died that night.
Thomas Andrews, builder of the Titanic, died that night.
Jack Phillips, the telegrapher, who stayed at his post even after Captain Smith had relieved him, died that night.
6th Officer James Moody died that night.
Chief Officer Henry Wild, well, so many people into the lifeboat, died that night.
Ida Strauss, who would not leave her husband Isidore, died with him that night.
Wallace Hartley, whose brave orchestra kept playing as the ship went under, and all the members of the White Star Orchestra died that night.
First Officer William Murdoch, who tried, too late, to turn the ship, died that night.
And 705 were saved.
After she went down, the cries were horrible. This was about 2:20 a.m. Around this time, 3 other ships and ours were put together by being tied to one another. The officer on board was continually making remarks such as, a good song to sing would be, throw out the lifeline. Later, I found out that his name was Love.
I, Emily Ryerson, was in the bow of the lifeboat with my daughter. I could see her and Mrs. Thayer and Mrs. Astor rowing. Then, we turned to pick up some of those in the water. Some of the women protested, others persisted. We dragged in about 6 or 7 men. 2 of them died later on. There was a Mr. Hoyt of New York. He was an enormous man, and it took all the boat's crew to pull this gentleman into the boat. Unfortunately, he died. I suppose he was too far gone when we picked him up. I went right around and, strange to say, I did not see a single female body, not one around the wreckage. The lamp on the boat was absolutely worth nothing. They tinkered with it all along, but could not get it into shape.
I had my electric cane, which had the light in it when I bought it. This was the only light that we had.
After the Titanic sank, we saw no lights, and no one seemed to know what to do. Lowe, the officer in charge of the boat, had called out earlier to tie us together. It was very cold.
The night was beautiful. Everything seemed to be with us in that respect.
The horizons were as tall as mountains. I am not exactly sure, but I think it was between 5 and 5:30 when we sighted the Carpathia.
Then, when the sun rose, we saw the Carpathia about 5 miles away.
We were just out there until just before daybreak when we saw the lights of Carpathia and rowed as hard as we could and arrived at the Carpathia 5 or 10 minutes after 5 in the morning.
I turned to see the great ship plunge toward the bow, and then she seemed to break in half, as if cut with a knife.
The ship was especially constructed to float with 2 compartments full of water. When we built the Titanic, we had that especially in mind. What we wanted to prevent against was any steamer running into the ship on a bulkhead. That would open up the 2 big compartments. The ship had met that iceberg bows on. I say in all human possibility that that ship would have been afloat today.
Maggie Brown survived and helped the other survivors aboard the Carpathia. But you can call me Molly.
Mrs. John Jacob Astor, who watched her husband go down with the ship, survived.
Ellen Bird survived.
Jessie Leach, the nursemaid for the Harper's daughter, survived.
Morris Beasley survived and broke up under the passenger.
Charlotte Collier,
Mary Sloan,
and Amy Stanley all survived.
Anna Truja, who tried to help Maria Panula and her children survive. She never understood why God would save a poor little finished girl when all rich people drowned.
Errol Wright, who assisted in sending out the very first SOS, survived.
Brother Archibald Gracie survived. Also wrote about the doomed ship, only to die a year later.
5th Officer Harold Lowe survived and helped pull other survivors into his boat.
3rd Officer Herbert Pittman, who spoke too roughly to Mr. Ismay, survived.
Bruce Ismay, the managing director of the White Star Line, found a place in a lifeboat and survived.
A year later, J. Bruce Ismay resigned as president of the White Star Lines and lived out the rest of his life a virtual recluse.
Nellie Becker and her daughter, Elizabeth, survived. They say there was much bravery during those last few hours, much more than we will ever know.
Captain Edward Smith went down with his ship.
His last words to his officers were, "Be British men. Be British."
No. His last words were, "Every man for himself." No, he swam to a lifeboat carrying a baby and then went back.
Frederick Fleet, the lookout who spotted the iceberg, took charge of your lifeboat and survived.
Reginald Lee, who was also on the lookout when the icebergs were spotted and survived.
Second Officer Charles Lightoller, who wouldn't leave the ship, was blown off and went to sea. He climbed into a collapsible lifeboat and later on proved himself a gallant and courageous officer many times over.
Fourth Officer Joseph Boxall, who stayed on board until he was commanded to command a lifeboat, survived. He died 55 years later. As per his last request, he had his ashes scattered all over the area where the Titanic sank.
The ship measures 882 feet in length and can carry a total of 3,500 passengers.
She is a grand ship, isn't she?
On the evening of April 14th, we watched the sunset. It was so lovely. It will be beautiful in the morning.
I never said she was unsinkable.
Flying in the face of Providence.
This was to be my last voyage. My last voyage.
And so, the Titanic is at rest. Some see her as a tomb, some a monument. One thing is clear, she is an enigma, and will stir in the hearts of all who hear her story a sense of empathy, a sense of grief, and as such, she will never be forgotten. In our hearts, she still sails on.